I'm going to go back to what I would say to myself to kind of, I think it will put every conversation that I would have in terms of economics in perspective. Just asking my young self, I don't care how much money you're making, do you have a budget? And do you even know what a budget is? And I probably would ask my younger self because um, this is something that I think talking to even young people now is kind of a good starting ground. And again, it probably makes people a little less um, combative because, again, you don't want to be the old dude. Let me tell you something. But I think asking the question, what did your parents teach you about money? And just let them talk. And I know the conversation would have been extremely short of what my answer would have been on that. I would probably say, well, get a nice car, get a good job. Always got to get a good job. And I did not want to go work at a factory. My dad worked at a factory, and I heard all the racism and turmoil, and I saw how hard he worked. I didn't want to go work at a factory, at a plant. And everybody in our hood worked at the plant, automotive plants. So
boy worked in a plant,
Right. I didn't want to do that because I didn't to me, I saw that plant life. This is what you get out of it, and this is the end. And of course, looking back at it now, old brothers, man, they gave us a great life. But
yeah.
I knew I could do more than that because I think I looked at all of the old guys and I'm like, y'all are much smarter than what that plant is utilizing. That plant is utilizing maybe doing this job, doing that job, that. But I knew all these old guys, man, they were geniuses up top. And I saw frustration that these guys had. So anyway, I don't want to go down that road completely. But I would start talking to my young self and say, what did your parents teach you about money? And since I would have said really nothing, then I would have said, okay, like I said, we're going to look at your car. And I would have talked to that. I already said that. Then I would have said, are you living at home? Of course, the answer would have been yes. And then I would have asked, so when do you plan on moving out? You a grown man. Why are you living in your parents' house? I'm sure you out here trying to see some ladies, but you living in your parents' house? When do you plan to get out? Because, at that time, I think once you start getting into your 20s, that's something a young man should be thinking about, getting your own stuff. And I would have just made that point to my young self that, grown men, and when you're sons, you're your dad's son, obviously. And so you're a grown man, you're now all competing for space. And I know your house isn't that big. So you might want to start getting your own spot. And I'm saving the best for last, if you will. But I would have started touching on, you have a child. You need to work on getting a home for you and your child because you have already started creating a family. Mm-hmm. So you need to get out of your mama and daddy's house. And I think that, I know me, that would have been enough of a slap because I knew the kind of dad and father I wanted to be. And so since having a child wasn't just having a child wasn't the impetus to get out of my parents' house and grow up, because everybody in the hood had kids and they were all pretty much living at home, especially the women. Women weren't running out getting their own place unless the state was paying for it in most cases. So I didn't think anything was really wrong with that. And I think that would have motivated me even sooner.
Man, I think back to that time because I was one of the few guys in the hood who didn't already have kids. One of my best friends, by the time he was 25, I think he already had 4 kids. Woo! One of the guys that I work with at that store that we talking about, it was like, he used to always joke, man, I'm gonna make a baby in every state in the country, right? Oh. I don't know how many kids he had, but I'm saying he started young and he had all of these kids and none of them lived with him. I'm like, dude, that's not the example I really want to follow.
Wow.
It never really occurred to me, this idea of moving out, because again, my thinking is so small. Like I'm earning this little paycheck, and for me, because I'm living at home, like I'm doing good. I'm getting my $350, sometimes $400 a week. I'm doing swell. I'm doing great. But I'm not thinking about, well, how well will you be doing if you paying for, your house note or you're paying rent You paying a car note, you paying for insurance, and let's not talk about insurance in the city that we were living in. It was like the little money that I was making at that point would not have sustained anything really. But in my small thinking, this again, thinking so small, I didn't really start having these thoughts until, I told this story one time when I was going to a community college, and I told that story because I can't remember exactly when my father asked me this question. It had to have been in the early 90s maybe. And he asked me some kind of mess I had got into, and I can't remember exactly what happened. And he looked at me one day and he was like, what are you going to do when I'm not here?
Really? Wow.
He said that, and it made me pause for a minute because I can't remember exactly what had happened. It might have been every Black male is going to have some type of run-in with the police, whether you living on the good side of the law or you're not. I never was into criminal activity, but just being brown skinned, you're still going to attract attention. And I remember one particular night, I can't remember the name of that mall. It was way out in the suburbs. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the mall, but me and a friend of mine were coming back and we got pulled over. And I can't remember if my license was suspended or something, but we ended up being, we got taken down. He, my parents had to come and get me, and it might have been after that where he just, what are you going to do when I'm not here? And it was like a couple years later, he was gone. And I told that story, we were in the community college and we were telling some of our, important lessons in life or whatever. And I remember I told that story and everybody was at the end of the class, everybody was looking at me like stunned, like the class was completely silent because that's when the coin really dropped, when I realized he wasn't there anymore, and that's the time when I really had to start collecting my thoughts and understanding like, okay, this is the real world. Now it's time to start having these thoughts that you were not having in the last 7 to 8 years. So it took something tragic in my life for me to start taking things a little bit more serious and getting outside of the box that I was living in. So that's, I wish it didn't have to be triggered by my father's death for me to start having thoughts that I should have been having years before that.
Man, that's deep. That was deep. I guess I will kind of pivot because you opened up the one to this, what I said. I'll save the best for me for last, because in order of if I had to put it in terms of priority, it's really the first one I should have brought up. I would look at my younger self, and the OG of me today would say,